Hello there, Michael with you here, and welcome to another one of my Git videos. So, firstly, sorry it's taken so long. I originally planned to do a Git video around Christmas time last year, but it didn't happen for a variety of reasons, one of which was that, well, there's no air conditioning in my house, and I didn't want to be anywhere near my computer around Christmas time. So, yeah, sorry it's taken so long. Hopefully I'll get these out a bit more often in the future. So, in this video, what I want to quickly show you is how I go about setting up a Git server when you're working on a project with a bunch of developers. This was actually a request. Someone wanted to see this sent me an email. So, hi, here it is. So, let's get started. This won't take that long. So, here we have a folder on my computer called Laptop Backup, and what this is really just a backup script that I'm writing for my laptop. So, and I'll quickly show you what it's about, just so you know. Here we go. Alright. So basically the idea of this backup is I want to back up my laptop when I'm at home to a network share with a specific frequency. And so there's all these problems that we need to take care of. What if we're not at home? It means we're not connected to the correct wireless network, so the backup will fail. It might, and you know, if I'm away for a week, then we have to make sure this keeps working. So the idea is I have cron run this script more often than what it needs to run, and then the backup script stores a timestamp of when the last successful backup was, so that it will run only when it needs to, if it can connect to the right wireless network, which in this case, that's my home network, no big deal. And then the rest, it's using rsync to do all the hard work, and there you go. So, anyway, I've got this backup script in a Git repository. Here's Git log. You can see entire history all there, everything's just as it should be, except if I type git remote, you'll see that there's nothing there. I haven't set up any remotes yet because I just created this Git repository locally. Now comes the time where, you know, I want to share it with someone, or I've got someone who wants to help work on it. So we need to push it to a remote somewhere so we can both access it, and we need to make sure that we both can write to it and all that kind of thing. So there are a couple of file permission issues we need to take care of, as well as actually getting the remote set up. So the way I'm going to do this is with SSH. Every project I've ever worked on that's used Git has connected to the server using SSH. There are other ways of doing it. You could push using WebDAV, for example, or Git's built-in protocol, Git. But I'm going to use SSH, and you probably should too, let's be honest. So, the Git server I'm pushing to is git.20papercups.net. Don't bother trying to connect to this, it won't work. This isn't a real fully qualified domain name. I've just edited my host file to make it look like I'm pushing to a server. But, ignore that. So, actually I need my username. git.20papercups.net. Alright. Here we are in my Git server. So, the first thing we need to do is make sure all of the users that are going to work on our repository exist on this system. And at the moment, I'm the only one who does, but I know for a fact that Frank is going to work on this with me. So sudo, this is a Linux, this is a Debian Ubuntu type thing, so we use adduser. I need my password to do it. Adding new password. Oh, let's just give Frank a password. Doesn't matter what it is. Don't need to enter any of that. Alright, so there we go. We've got user Frank added to the system. The next thing we need to do is set up a group, because, you know, realistically, if this is a server, for example, we have a Git server, we have a server running for our lab at UniSA, and we've got some repositories that everyone can access, and some you have to be a member of a particular group. So setting up the group permissions is really important to control who can read or who can write to the repository. So we're going to add a group, and I'm going to call this developers. Done. Awesome. Next thing we need to do is add Michael and Frank to this group, because otherwise, you know, it won't happen. So I'm going to cheat and vim, oops. There's a program, a command line tool for actually editing this so you don't have to break it. But I'm just going to edit the etc group file and add Michael and Frank to the developers group. Okay, if you want to use the command line tool, it's probably better because you are less likely to break this file. And it's a very important file, let's be honest. But anyway, so now we've got all the users that are going to work on the repository, and we've got a group set up for the developers, and all of the developer users are in that group. That's a good start. The next thing we need to do is create our repository. So I'm going to make a couple of directories. So I tend to, if I have control over the server, put my Git repositories in export Git. This is completely optional. Where you put it really depends on your server situation. So next thing I'm going to do, make directory, and let's call this laptop backup .git. So this is where we're going to have our repository. The first thing I need to do though is set up the group permissions. You can see this is owned by root and writable only by root. This is clearly not correct. So what we're going to do is change the group ownership of this directory to be our developers group. And we normally would do this recursively. If you've already set up your Git repository, you'd do this recursively, but because this is a brand new empty directory, we're okay. So sudo change group, and then we're going to change it to the developers group, laptop backup. Alright, so now we've got this change to the developer group. The next thing we need to do is set the correct read-write permissions. So the way I'm going to do this is sudo chmod, so group plus read-write, and I'm going to set the sticky bit, which basically means anything created in this subdirectory will inherit the group permissions of the parent folder. Very important with Git repositories, you might end up not being able to push if you're a particular user unless you have this set correctly. So laptop backup.git, and now if I type ls-l again, you can see that the group is able to read and write, and it's got the s bit set, which is a good start. Next thing we're going to do is actually initialize our Git repository. So I'm going to cd into this folder, and I'm going to do a git init command, but it's going to be slightly different to what you'd normally do if you were just working on your local machine. So git init --bear. The reason for bear is we don't want a particular working copy checked out of this Git repository. This Git repository is going to just store all the repository. It doesn't have a working checked out copy. If you ignore this --bear and then try to push to this repository, in newish versions of Git, you'll get a warning or possibly an error saying that you can't push to this repository because it isn't bare. Because what it means is you're actually modifying the working copy, kind of, and if someone got onto your server and did something like a git reset, it would mess up your repository completely. So we do --bear, and we also do --shared. And by default, the shared, when we have this like this, is set to group sharing. In other words, everyone that's a member of the group will be able to read and write to it. If you look in the Git manual, there are a whole bunch of different options for Git shared, but this is the most common one that I've come across. So we do that, and of course it's permission denied. Let's try that as a root. Now if I type ls-l, what's that done? That's correct. So the important thing, the bit where developers are going to push to, is in here, and they're able to write to it. So with that, that is our Git server set up. So now if I exit out of this machine, connection closed, and now we add our remote here, git remote add origin, and this is Michael at git.20papercups.net, And now we should be able to push to this. Now, because this is the first time we've ever pushed to this repository, the repository was empty before. It doesn't have any branches set up. So the first time we do this, and only the first time, we have to specify that we're pushing the master branch. And it didn't work because I'm an idiot. Git remote. I forgot the path to the Git repository. So that's okay. We're learning something. We remove the origin remote. And if I just press up a bit, colon export git laptop backup. Alright, now let's try that. Put in my password. And we're good. New branch created. Awesome. So, what I might do now, just to verify that the group permissions are working, is just to cd out of this and clone this repository. And we'll clone it as Frank, our other developer. At, what are we doing? Git.20papercups.net colon export git laptop backup. I need to put Frank backup. Alright, so there we go, Frank backup. And just to prove that the permissions were set up correctly, I might just edit the readme. Oops. And go git commit -a git push origin. We don't need to specify the master branches now because the master branch already exists on the remote. So we go git push, put in Frank's password, and it all works. Fantastic. So with that, that's all I really wanted to show with this video. What we've looked at is how to set up a remote on your local Git repository, but also, more importantly, how to set up the necessary users and groups and permissions for a remote repository. So with that, that's pretty much it for this video. But before we go, I just wanted to point out, if you are interested in this laptop backup thing, it's actually on GitHub. It's nothing exciting. If you've got a MacBook or a MacBook Pro like me, and you want to do something without using Time Machine, it might be useful to you. But, you know, I take no responsibility for wrecking your laptop or not backing up your files. But anyway, there it is. So with that, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.